Hello. Thank you for joining and welcome to our A10 webinar, 5 Threats Hiding in Your SSL Traffic. During today's session, attendees will be in listen-only mode. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the call. If you have a question during the presentation, you may submit it online by entering it in the Q&A panel located at the top of your screen. This presentation is being recorded and will be available to you by email. If you are experiencing technical difficulties, please use the chat window for assistance. Today, our speaker will be Casey Cross, Security Evangelist. Casey, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Stephanie. Today we are going to be talking about the top 5 threats hiding in your SSL traffic, as Stephanie mentioned. Encryption is one of the greatest threats today, and it might be one of the least known threats for enterprises. So to educate you on the threats related to encrypted traffic, I will discuss SSL usage trends. It is worth mentioning that when I say SSL, I'm also referring to TLS, or transport layer security, which is the successor to SSL. So every time I mention SSL, I'm really mentioning both solutions or protocols. Then I will discuss threats introduced by encryption and reveal the top 5 threats hiding in your SSL traffic. Then I will talk about solutions that can help you decrypt traffic and provide that traffic unencrypted to all the components of your security infrastructure. Then we will open up the presentation for Q&A. As Stephanie mentioned, please enter your questions in the Q&A panel, and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. We had quite a few questions in the earlier webinar, and we appreciate the opportunity to answer them live. So, as most of you know, cyber attacks are one of the largest threats facing organizations. This is just a representation of the size and impact of recent data breaches that expose customer data. It doesn't include some of the latest breaches like the Ashley Madison breach, which occurred after we created this slide, but that just shows the Ashley Madison breach in particular showed not just the loss of customer data, but it also was a very damaging breach that caused psychological trauma and humiliation for the victims. And those victims can be customers or it could be employees of the organization. The Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, which has been tracking data breaches since 2005, has actually recorded over 4,000 breaches and over 880 million breached records. And these breaches can result in investigation and notification costs and credit monitoring services for victims. It can result in brand damage and lost revenue and regulatory fines and lawsuits, and in some cases can even cause organizations to go out of business. Some of the top causes of large-scale data breaches include malware, insider abuse, and advanced persistent threats. While some types of data loss, such as physical device theft, do not involve network-based attacks, the majority of cyber attacks today, based on a variety of breach reports and analysis and analytics of breaches, shows that network-based attacks are the leading cause of the cyber attacks or data breaches, and all of these network-based attacks can occur over encrypted connections. The number of new malware strains is exploding today, and it's rendering many traditional signature-based endpoint antivirus solutions ineffective, and that's caused by self-mutating malware, and as a result, organizations need to look at network communications to perform more advanced analytics, to look for like using virtual sandboxing, and to look for users connecting out and doing suspicious activity after the infection, and all of that requires network inspection. There's also insider abuse, where 55% of insiders abused legitimate access to steal data and to share it or to use it in a future job. And some of these users feel like they're entitled to the data, whereas other users obviously know if they're taking customer information and credit card data, know that they're doing something illegal. And then there's advanced persistent threats. 66% of organizations believe they will be the target of an APT, according to Mandiant, which is a FireEye company, and the number one perpetrator of these types of attacks is state-sponsored criminals or state-sponsored attackers. Cyber attacks can hide in SSL traffic. Just coming to some of the statistics, by next year, 67% of internet traffic will be encrypted according to Sandbind, and 50% of attacks will use encryption to bypass controls by 2017, and that's actually a very conservative estimate. That prediction was made in 2013 before the huge growth in SSL traffic, so we believe that the number of attacks, or the percentage of attacks, will actually more closely mirror the percentage of traffic that's encrypted, so it'll probably be over 2/3 of all attacks will use encryption to bypass controls, and 80% of organizations with firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, or unified threat management products do not decrypt SSL traffic. So that means that even though organizations have invested in security that can look into packets and find attacks, they're not really using it on the majority of their traffic because they're not decrypting that SSL traffic. And to put this in perspective and how big of an issue SSL traffic is, back in 2013, roughly 25 to 35% of internet traffic was encrypted. It's been growing ever since the Edward Snowden revelations, and I'll talk about that more in the next slide, but by next year, 67% of traffic is expected to be encrypted. Based on these trends, based on the greater concern over snooping, based on different initiatives like Let's Encrypt, we believe that eventually almost all traffic will be encrypted. For some of the reasons why organizations are encrypting traffic, back in 2013, Edward Snowden revealed that different government organizations were snooping on citizens for security reasons, but that created some privacy concerns, and as a result, a lot of application owners like leading websites like Facebook and Yahoo and Google started encrypting traffic. And then in 2014, it was discovered that other governments, not necessarily the U.S. government, but other governments were injecting surveillance software into web traffic, and they were explicitly using YouTube and Microsoft Live as a conduit to inject malware. So you can see in this picture that the malware or the exploitation happens between you and the cat videos. And as a result of this information, now both YouTube and Microsoft Live encrypt traffic, preventing men in the middle or women in the middle from injecting malware into traffic streams. In addition, Google now ranks websites higher if they have enabled SSL. So a lot of organizations are supporting HTTPS, or they're actually enforcing and requiring that users use HTTPS in order to access their sites. And what does this mean? That means that our collective $71 billion plus investment in cybersecurity is failing. So organizations that have invested in next generation firewalls and in secure web gateways, intrusion detection and prevention solutions, advanced threat prevention and protection solutions like virtual sandboxing solutions like FireEye, security and information event management products, SIEMs, network forensics, DLP or data loss prevention, network access control, and unified threat management. All of those products really depend on looking at network traffic and performing deep packet inspection, and they can't do that with encrypted traffic. In addition, there's a raft of new types of security products that use machine learning and user behavior analytics and more advanced technologies to detect anomalies, and a lot of those products also, to varying degrees, need to look at packets, and they can't do that when traffic's encrypted. One of the main reasons why organizations are not decrypting their traffic is that they don't know how to firewall with their current network infrastructure, and that's because many firewalls today will experience massive performance degradation if they start decrypting traffic. So various reports have shown that firewall performance drops more than 75% when decrypting SSL traffic. And what we're also seeing now, not only do you have more SSL traffic, which means more traffic to decrypt, you also have more advanced ciphers being used. You have perfect forward secrecy and mutual authentication and more stringent ciphers and larger SSL keys. We're seeing more and more 4K keys. And all of this actually makes it harder for firewalls to decrypt traffic and degrades the performance even more. So let's take a look at 5 attacks that can hide in SSL traffic. So if I were to cover all the different attacks that can hide in SSL, this would be a very long and possibly boring webinar, because basically any network attack today could hide in SSL. And so we've identified 5 of the top threats. The first one being malware sent as an attachment in email and instant messaging apps. This is kind of the most basic and probably most well-known type of threat. That's where you get an email, it has a malicious attachment, as you can see in the screen, and if you open up that attachment, you'll be infecting your machine with malware. So if you're using SMTPS, and if your organization is not decrypting that traffic and inspecting it, then all of that, the malicious payloads will not be inspected. On top of that, you've got web-based email. So you have Yahoo Mail, Gmail, all of those online email services also encrypt traffic, although it's over web, but it's still encrypted email, and you can still have malware attached to email messages. You also have instant messaging like Skype, WhatsApp, and Snapchat, where users can attach and send files, and all of those instant messaging applications encrypt communications. And then on top of that, your standard mail server, your Exchange server and stuff is now defaulting to, or more and more often, it's using encryption to send communications to clients and send communications with other servers. So our second type of attack that can hide in SSL traffic is malware distributed through social media sites. So today, almost every social media site, including Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, they all use SSL. And the top threats of social media are malware propagation, like jacking, data leakage, and spam. So for like jacking, it's a little bit different than the normal use case. It's a form of click jacking, where a user goes to a website, they think they're liking one thing, but a scammer has loaded fake images that a user clicks on, and so they're actually liking something they didn't want to, or they're performing an unwanted action. And then that, whatever they've done, will be forwarded on or propagated to all the other friends and users that the user knows. And the other major threat is, and probably the leading threat, is malware propagation. So there was a whole campaign a couple years ago called the Coup-based campaign that was a multi-million-dollar campaign based just on compromising Facebook users. And the way that this would be done is that the malware would infect one user's account and then upload a Facebook post that would say, watch this exciting video about either a news event, like in this example, it's a fake video about the Malaysian Airlines crash, and that the plane had been found in the Bermuda Triangle. If someone actually tried to view the video, they'd click it, they would get some sort of message saying something like, you need to update your Adobe plugin. The user would click on it, and unbeknownst to them, they'd actually be downloading malware and become infected, and then they would repeat the process. And because Facebook is encrypted, all communications to the Facebook servers are encrypted. If you're not decrypting that traffic, you would not realize that users are getting infected. The third type of attack that can hide in SSL traffic are your web application and your DDoS attacks. So basically, as more and more websites start supporting encryption, most organizations that are protecting their web applications are going to support SSL. All of those web attacks, whether it's SQL injection, cross-site scripting, brute force attacks to login pages, all of those attacks can be performed over SSL. So organizations with a web application firewall, like A10's web application firewall, need to decrypt SSL traffic before they inspect it. And that's pretty straightforward. Another type of threat is and sometimes it's used in conjunction with web attacks, is DDoS attacks. So for application layer DDoS attacks, attackers can either try to bypass controls with SSL, or more likely they try to overwhelm the web server by performing an HTTPS flood, or they can perform certain types of specific SSL-related attacks like SSL renegotiation attacks that can overwhelm and take down the web server. So organizations that want to prevent web application attacks and DDoS attacks definitely need to decrypt that traffic. I think that while today, 80% of organizations do not decrypt traffic at their firewall, I think that that percentage is a lot lower for web application firewalls, because I think most web application firewall owners recognize the threat and are decrypting traffic. But if you're not, we highly recommend that you do. So the fourth of the 5 attacks hiding in SSL traffic is data exfiltration hidden in SSL. So basically, insiders have a whole bunch of different options today to try to get data out of an organization using encryption. Those options include sending data through web-based mail like Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Microsoft Live. They can easily send an attachment and send it out to a different address, to their friends, whoever else, and they can use that as a way to steal customer or internal corporate information. They can also upload sensitive files to file sharing sites like Box, Dropbox, iCloud, and OneDrive, and all of these sites use encryption. In addition, they can share data through instant messaging apps, which also uses encryption. They can send different chat messages, et cetera, with attachments through different social media sites. So there's a full gamut of different options for insiders, those bad insiders, to send data out of an organization using encryption. And just to reinforce that if you're using a data loss prevention product and you're not inspecting encrypted traffic, your DLP product is not going to be very effective. And then the last of the top 5 threats that we're going to highlight today is probably the most interesting, and that is data exfiltration from intruders and from bots and malware that's hidden in SSL. So we'll start with the more basic type, which is a couple years ago, when some of the more advanced financial Trojans came out, they were explicitly using encryption for command and control server communications, or CNC communications. So Zeus, among others, and Shylock, et cetera, they would use encryption to send data to command and control servers. What security products were able to do is they would see the communications to known bad IP addresses, and they could identify the traffic then and then detect the infection and clean it. The problem today is that malware has gotten a lot more advanced. So malware can use social media or file sharing or email sites to exfiltrate data. As one example, late last year, researchers at Dr. Web identified a complex backdoor worm that was targeting Mac operating systems, and criminals could use it to issue a lot of different commands to carry out, and this worm had infected over 17,000 unique IP addresses as of late last year. And what this malware would do is once it was installed, it would try to talk to a command and control server. But to identify that command and control server, because these servers go up and down and change, what it would do is it would go to reddit.com and perform a query and look for a web page that contained a list of Minecraft servers, and then one of the accounts under that Minecraft server list was actually a malicious account that listed out the latest command and control servers. So that's just one example of how malware can go out and start getting information or communicating and grabbing information through command and control, through encryption, and it's no longer possible to detect that it's bad communications, because if you're not decrypting the traffic, you would just see a user going to Reddit, which is probably most times legitimate, and then not realize that it's actually malware that's retrieving data on the internet. So just to summarize and to give you a couple more exciting examples of how attackers can use SSL, from the attack perspective, the bot infection perspective, users can download and install malicious attachments sent over email. Using an encrypted channel, they can actually go to drive-by download sites, which was not in the top 5 but could have easily been on the top 5. So there's a lot of different phishing sites and malicious sites that have the watering holes, et cetera, that have malware on them, and those websites can easily be encrypted, and users can easily, and unknowing to them, download malware through a HTTPS site. And then malicious files and instant messaging is also a top avenue of attack. And then once that malware has infected a machine, the communication out from the infected machine to the internet can be encrypted, and that can be through basic requests to and communications to dedicated command and control servers, or it can be stolen data sent via web-based email or cloud storage sites. And then it can also be malware receiving command and control updates from social media sites. So for a couple examples, there's been malware that's gone to malicious Twitter accounts to receive the instructions on which IP addresses to perform and the time to perform a DDoS attack. There's also been malware that has received CNC communications through Pinterest comments. So they go to a specific Pinterest account and they can actually get instructions from the Pinterest account. And then also, more recently, there's a research team found a strain of malware that was actually, had stolen a note from the Colonel Petraeus handbook of how to communicate surreptitiously. And so what it was doing is it was logging, this malware was logging into Gmail and then not sending emails but updating Gmail draft messages, and that was the form of communications to the command and control server. So just to put this in perspective, this is a diagram of a network with, different products like intrusion prevention products that can detect and stop attacks. Now that same network with encrypted traffic will allow attacks to pass by because all of the different products in the network, the firewalls, the network forensics, the advanced threat protection products cannot detect the threats. So what can you do about it? A10 has developed SSL Insight technology, which can help organizations uncover threats in their SSL traffic. SSL Insight offers full SSL traffic visibility with broad SSL cipher coverage. It offers 10 times greater performance than other solutions in the market, scaling up to 40 gigs of SSL decryption throughput in a single configuration, and it can decrypt traffic once and inspect it many times with traffic steering. For a little more detail, SSL Insight eliminates the blind spots without compromising network performance, so it can help organizations decrypt and inspect traffic for malware, for insider abuse, and for other types of attacks hidden in SSL traffic. It provides full visibility to all sorts of SSL ciphers, including elliptic curve ciphers. It offers extremely high performance, and it can scale up to 40 gigs, I mentioned, in a two appliance configuration. We'll talk about the different configurations in a second. And then we can also help organizations scale the capacity of their security infrastructure. So they can load balance their firewalls. They can even load balance traffic to non-inline devices to help increase the capacity and the uptime of those security appliances. And then also, A10 and Thunder ADC supports a lot of different deployment options, so it can actually it can act as it can sit in front of a secure web gateway and support proxy chaining. It can support ICAP integration, and it can allow inline security devices like firewalls to manipulate data and say scrub content or send errors and redirect messages to users without any problems. So one of the first questions that comes up when organizations start looking at decrypting their SSL traffic is how do they protect users' privacy? They want to stop the malware, but they don't want to violate any compliance laws or look at more information than they should. So one way that organizations can adhere to compliance is by using URL classification. We offer a URL classification subscription powered by WebRoot BrightCloud, which can automatically classify over 460 million domains and I think over 2 billion URLs into 83 different categories. So organizations can bypass healthcare and banking site traffic and ensure that data never gets inspected. They can also, if they want, they can upload their own URLs to bypass and use other mechanisms to do that, but for the most up-to-date and comprehensive list, we recommend our URL classification service. So just as a case study, one Fortune 500 company, healthcare company, they needed a high-performance solution that would enable their FireEye, Ironclad, Palo Alto, and actually their Blue Coat Proxy SG products to inspect SSL traffic. They looked at F5 and Blue Coat. They ended up selecting the A10 Thunder ADC appliance with SSL Insight and their URL classification subscription. They did this because we were the only company that could meet their performance requirements and answer their technical questions and perform the advanced features like URL classification. And they also really needed to offload their proxy, and they discovered that the Blue Coat SSL visibility appliance could not decrypt traffic for their proxy SG. So that's why they looked at alternative solutions. So that was why they chose A10. So another case study, and this is a government organization that did not have a solution for inspecting SSL traffic. So this organization had deployed security devices from pretty much every leading security vendor under the sun, IPS, network firewall, next generation firewall, advanced threat protection, everything. And they were not inspecting SSL traffic because of the performance scale and the complexity of their network. And they suffered an attack. They realized that attackers had infiltrated their network and installed malware on multiple endpoints and were stealing data actively. So they dropped their internet connection for days when this happened, and they performed lengthy forensics and remediation. They brought in a third-party consulting firm, and that consulting firm determined that their security tools would have prevented this attack if they had been decrypting SSL traffic. So for them, the cost for the loss of productivity in the network, in the forensics investigation when they were taken offline was moderate, but it was okay. But the loss of intellectual property, which included valuable government or information, that was extremely high, almost not quantifiable. So for them, they realized they had to inspect SSL traffic, and subsequently they have started decrypting SSL. So A10, a lot of times when organizations start decrypting traffic, they want to make sure that their traffic will work with the security products that are currently in their network. So we have developed the A10 Security Alliance, and we've partnered with FireEye, RSA, IBM, Cisco, Checkpoint, Cypher, QRadar, Trend Micro, Vectra, and PulseSecure, and more to help inspect that SSL traffic. We also partner with other vendors for advanced attack detection, like DDoS attack detection, programmatic security control, certificate management, so if you want to have secure SSL, certificate management, threat intelligence, URL classification, and authentication. So here's just, again, the list of our SSL Insight inspection partners. We also, besides this list, we are working on additional partner validations, and we also have, what do we have? We have also have other customer deployments where we're supporting other products in the field that are not part of the A10 Security Alliance. So I'm going to briefly describe, I think, 3 deployments, and then I will wrap up and turn it over to Q&A. So as a reminder, if you have any questions, please enter them now in the Q&A panel. So for a single appliance SSL Insight deployment, this is like the simplest deployment we have. You have a single A10 appliance. We actually support application delivery partitions, which is like layer 3 virtualization. So it's kind of like a single appliance with multiple kind of load balancer instances in them. And then we can, with one instance, decrypt the traffic, send it to the firewall, and then the firewall examines the traffic and then sends the legitimate traffic to the second application delivery partition, which then re-encrypts the data and sends it out to the internet. And this is a layer 2 deployment, and it can be completely transparent. We support other more complex configurations, like if you have inline security devices and non-inline security devices. This shows a 2-appliance, A10 2-appliance deployment, but you could easily do the same type of configuration with a single appliance and our application delivery partitions. So in this scenario, one appliance decrypts the traffic and sends it on a mirror port to a non-inline device or to multiple non-inline devices. And then it also decrypts the traffic for a secure web gateway and for an intrusion prevention system or a firewall. And then a second A10 appliance re-encrypts the data and sends it out to the internet. And then our last deployment scenario is with ICAP integration. So with this scenario, we can decrypt the traffic, send it through ICAP to a data loss prevention product, which can then inspect the traffic inline, and then one partition, then the application delivery partition can send it to a firewall or an inline security device for inspection, and then a second application delivery partition can re-encrypt the data and send it out to the internet. And this is configurable to work with internal and external offender devices. So that summarizes our deployments. Here's a couple reasons why customers choose A10. Number one is our best-in-class performance, our advanced security and networking features, so our ability to support both SSL decryption as well as load balancing, our all-inclusive licensing and support, our flexible cloud deployment and APIs. So we have a RESTful API that, so basically all of our management is built on top of APIs. So every command you can do through the CLI, you can also use through our APIs, which provides unprecedented integration with like management tools as well as a lot of telemetry and visibility data. We also have a data center efficient design where our appliances can scale up to like 150 gigs of application throughput on a 1 rack unit appliance. And then we also offer the gold standard in terms of reliability and support. So SSL Insight provides the visibility that organizations need. Data breaches today are increasing and they're very costly. Our SSL Insight technology provides the visibility needed to uncover attacks and prevent breaches. And SSL traffic today renders many security devices ineffective, and decrypting SSL traffic slows down firewalls, while SSL Insight provides 10 times more performance, so it won't slow down your network, and in fact, it will probably take a load off of your existing security devices. And then to ensure that you're not the next victim of attack, you should deploy some sort of solution to decrypt SSL traffic, and A10 can help organizations decrypt SSL traffic once and inspect it multiple times with traffic steering. So that's it. Now I will answer all of your questions. So it looks like I see a few in the Q&A panel. The first one is, let's see here. Do you believe NSA is not able to decrypt SSL traffic, so the ones that encrypt traffic after known are likely at least optimistic? I do not know that. Okay, so I think the first question is more of a subjective question, and I do not know the answer, so I will skip to the second question. How do you handle two-way authentication to a website with a certificate? So because we're a proxy, if it's just a standard two-way authentication, then what we can do is we can handle it because we're a proxy. So we're fully terminating the session and we can act as both the client and the server. If you're talking, there's other types of authentication or like encryption, like certificate pinning, and there's different ways to get around that by like disabling the certificate pinning on the web browsers to be able to intercept the data and inspect it for attacks. And then there's another question, is if you decrypt and re-encrypt to the client, you likely encrypt the traffic to the client with your own certificate, which makes it impossible, let's see here, which makes it impossible for the end user to check the certificate on the server. Just a second here. Okay, so the third question I think is related to the fact that when you have a man in the middle, the end user can't tell who actually signed the certificate. All they see is the man in the middle signing the certificate. What we can do at the SSL proxy level is we can enable, like let's say you want to allow users to know that they're going to a site that has a expired certificate. You can either block the connection at the proxy level, or you can allow the connection, or you can display an error message depending upon what you feel is the best scenario for your organization. Okay, let me see if there's any more questions. Okay. And then there was one question for, can we decrypt SSL on any port? The answer to that is we can decrypt on any port. We can dynamically detect the SSL traffic, and then depending upon, and then decrypt it if it's standard SSL. So I think that, let's see here. Oh, looks like there's one more question, and that question is, how do you comply with HIPAA compliance even when inspecting SSL traffic? The biggest concern for privacy and security mandates such as HIPAA is that organizations should not expose, oh, it looks like there's another question coming in. They should not expose sensitive data such as healthcare and financial records. Depending on the type of business and location, organizations may wish to bypass sensitive traffic. And what we can do is, with our URL classification, we can help organizations bypass traffic to healthcare and banking sites. And then let's see here. Okay. And then there's some questions about authentication with the ID card. Depending upon that, that's a little bit different in that you can sort of decide what you want to do. You could allow, I think we have some government customers that have government users that have those types of cards, and depending upon your requirements, you can bypass or allow that traffic through without encryption or without inspection. So I think that summarizes it, and I think I've answered all the questions. If you have any further questions or if I didn't answer them, please contact me afterwards. I think we'll send a summary after the webinar with some of those questions. That is all. Thank you for joining us today. Bye-bye.